Okay, friends, picture this. The age-old adage I heard a million times growing up. It takes a village to raise a child. Rolling off the tongue, right? Wise grandmother-type wisdom. I nodded along. But then I became the mother. No helpers, no backup, just me and a tiny human who seemed to glow and scream in equal measure. Suddenly, that proverb wasn't just quaint, it was gold. And now I believe every word. Let's unpack that phrase. It takes a village. Real definition. Show me who's in your village, and I'll show you how your kid learns about kindness, problem solving, resilience. It's not just parents, it's teachers, neighbors, that grocer named Bob, the local librarian telling bedtime stories on Saturdays. Communities raising kids, everywhere this world, every culture, sees that kid raising is communal, not solo. Stat Corner. According to a UNICEF report from 2023, communities with strong social cohesion saw 30% lower rates of behavioral issues in children under 12 compared to communities high on social isolation. That's massive. Behavior problems down nearly a third. Because kids have more than one role model. That's the power of a village. Where does this expression originate? The roots go deep. Linguists trace it to an Igbo proverb from Nigeria, Oma Omu Bu Obodo, which literally means it takes a whole community to create one child. I love that. Create one child. We're not detached from community, we're made by it. Urban myth says Hillary Clinton popularized this phrase in the West when her 1996 book was titled exactly this, It Takes a Village. But the saying is much older, woven through countless African proverbs, spoken word traditions, indigenous tribes. So yes, Clinton popularized. No, she didn't invent. We must credit centuries of African wisdom. What happened to our village? Fast forward to today. You scroll Instagram. Everyone's juggling 17 responsibilities and counting the minutes before burnout. Where did the village go? I see three seismic reasons. 1. Globalization and geographic drift. In 1970, around 60% of U.S. families lived within a 10-mile radius of relatives. By 2020, that's shrunk to 30%. In the UK, similar numbers. That means your sister who'd watch the kids? She's now 600 miles away. The village is on another continent. 2. Economic pressures. World Bank data shows the average cost of raising a child to age 18 in the U.S. is around $310,000. In the UK, about £200,000. That means both parents, or solo parent, works full-time, nailing double shifts. No time to drop in for a cup of tea, let alone respite for each other. Third, culture of stoicism. In the UK, the stiff upper lip mentality is real. We hear it across the Commonwealth. New research from King's College London, 2022, shows 40% of parents say they'd feel judged asking for help. So, of course, we face burnout alone, pretending we're fine. Your village, who's in it? Let's get granular. A village includes extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, people who passed through childhood. They carry lived wisdom, immediate community, neighbors, baristas, bus drivers, people your kids see daily who can model civility, institutions, schools, libraries, sports clubs, systems that teach values and team spirit. Faith spiritual groups, whether church, mosque, temple, or hiking club, it's about shared purpose. Online community. For better or worse, virtual villages, FB groups, parenting forums, online or in real life, community builds resilience. So, montage. I'm filming my 50th birthday ski video in Whistler. Massive shoot. People everywhere. Now overlay that with parenting, not me solo vacuuming the house and hiding in the bathroom for 5 minutes. But because my real village showed up, crew members handed me snacks, the driver gave my toddler stickers during a break, and someone kept reminding me, you got this. Without them, I'd likely be crying in a ski lodge, staring at a goat cheese plate, wondering what day it is. That's what happens when you create a village. You show up for each other. Even 600 miles from home, the mental village shows up, and it counts. So let's just call this what it is. The whole concept of solo parenting without backup is kind of unnatural. I mean, not biologically. Obviously, humans can reproduce alone, but culturally, emotionally, spiritually, it's bananas. Here's what blows my mind. The nuclear family, the just mom, dad, and the kids model, is a very recent invention. Historically, across almost every indigenous and early agrarian society, child rearing was a communal act. You didn't have to book a babysitter on an app and negotiate a 3-hour window. You had 5 aunties in a 2-room house and a grandfather who taught you how to gut a fish while telling you a folk story about betrayal and patience. Let me give you this stat. According to the American Anthropological Association, 83% of traditional societies observed by ethnographers featured cooperative child rearing as a central cultural norm. That's huge. Humans were literally not designed to raise kids in isolation. It's like trying to run a relay race entirely by yourself. Exhausting, lonely, and frankly, not that fun. What happens to kids raised without a village? Now, here's the part where I put my sociologist hat on. Yes, I have one. It's metaphorical and stylish. A 2022 Harvard Child Development Study showed that children with at least 3 stable, emotionally available adult figures in their lives had a 47% higher likelihood of developing strong emotional regulation skills by age 12. That's nearly half again as likely to not melt down over a broken crayon. I mean, let's be honest. Don't we all need more of that? And here's the kicker. Those extra adults don't have to be perfect. They just have to show up consistently with warmth and empathy. Let me say it again louder for the folks in the back. Children thrive when more people love them. Full stop. But what about the parents? You want stats? Oh, I've got stats. Parental burnout, as defined by the World Health Organization in 2019, includes emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a sense of reduced accomplishment in your role as a parent. A 2023 study from the University of California found that single parents without access to consistent community support were twice as likely to experience clinical levels of burnout compared to partnered parents with community infrastructure. We're talking actual medical grade exhaustion. Another figure, 78% of mothers in a 2021 survey by Motherly reported feeling like they were doing it alone, even those in partnerships. Why? Because without a functional village, we isolate even when surrounded by people. Now here's where it gets really real. Maternal mental health. Postpartum depression affects roughly 1 in 7 mothers, according to the CDC, but among women who reported having little or no family or community support, that number climbs to 1 in 3. That's epidemic levels of loneliness, folks. So there was a week, one of those weeks, when I had no childcare, deadlines, a teething toddler who seemed to hate joy, and a dinner party to host for some reason. I still don't know why I agreed to that. Midweek, I opened the fridge and literally just stood there, hoping it would hand me a meal. And you know what showed up instead? My neighbor, with soup, unannounced. She handed me a glass container, smiled, and said, I figured you could use one less thing today. Now listen, I cried, over lentil soup, because in that moment she became the village. It wasn't a big event. It wasn't an Instagram story. It was a simple, holy act of noticing someone else's exhaustion. That's the heartbeat of a village. It's the soup. It's the presence. Why the do it all yourself model is a scam. You know this one, the hustle culture lie that if you just plan better, you can do everything. Work full time, raise emotionally intelligent kids, cook Pinterest worthy meals, meditate, drink water, get 8 hours of sleep, and learn Mandarin with your toddler in a park somewhere while listening to a parenting podcast. Stop. According to a 2022 Pew Research study, mothers in dual income U.S. households still perform nearly 70% of childcare and domestic duties. In the UK, the ONS reports 65%. That's not equality. That's a full time job on top of your full time job. And the punchline? Studies show that parents, especially mothers, who try to do it all without support systems, report lower life satisfaction, higher rates of anxiety, and less joy in parenting. Joy, the actual point of all of this. Let's shift the narrative. What if instead of asking parents to just tough it out, we asked communities to toughen up their empathy muscles? Here's what building a village could look like. The neighbor who knocks once a week just to ask if you need something from the store. The friend who says, drop the baby off here for an hour and go walk in silence. The school that asks parents what support they need. It's not about grand gestures. It's about the cumulative effect of people showing up just a little more. And if you're listening to this and thinking, but I don't have anyone, listen closely. You can build a village from scratch. That's what part 3 is for. Because the truth is, villages don't just appear, they're built intentionally, with clear boundaries, consistent love, and yes, sometimes over bowls of lentil soup delivered in Tupperware. So here we are, the big question. How do you build a village when you feel like you live on a parenting island surrounded by invisible sharks of judgment, exhaustion, and wildly overpriced childcare? Because here's the honest truth. The village isn't showing up anymore unless we build it. Now, full transparency, this part is uncomfortable for a lot of people because it means we might have to ask for help, gasp, or let someone else fold the towels wrong, double gasp. But the alternative is parenting in a vacuum, and no one thrives in a vacuum except Dyson. First up, what stops people from being helpable? We have to start here because the truth is, even when help is available, many parents push it away. Why? First, perfectionism culture. Especially for mothers, there's this weird expectation to be the CEO of the house, the project manager of childhood, and the executive chef, all while smiling through spit up. According to a study published in the Journal of Marriage and Family, 57% of mothers say they feel like accepting help would make them appear like a bad mom. Let's sit with that for a second. Over half of mothers would rather struggle than be seen as insufficient, even though the WHO literally classifies burnout as a public health issue now. So yeah, that pressure's real. 2. The martyr myth. The one that whispers, if I suffer more, I must love them more. False. Love isn't proven through exhaustion, it's proven through presence. And sometimes that presence requires rest, not running. 3. Fear of judgment. You know this one. If I ask my neighbor to babysit, will they talk about me later? Will they think I'm lazy, ungrateful, entitled? Spoiler, that's internalized societal judgment because the stats don't lie. Communities with high mutual aid networks report 40% lower maternal stress levels. It's science. It's not weakness. it's wiring. Now, how do you actually build your village? Let's break it down with 5 key pillars. 1. Be a little vulnerable, strategically. You don't need to trauma dump at school pickup, but a casual, hey, today's been a ride. I could really use 30 minutes to myself, might be all it takes to open the door. According to a 2020 Psychology Today meta-analysis, small disclosures expressing vulnerability in tiny doses increased social trust by up to 70%. People want to help. They just need permission to offer. 2. Ask for specific help. Not, let me know if you need anything, but could you grab my older kid from school on Friday? Why? Because vagueness equals indecision equals nothing happens. But specific asks, people know what to do. They can say yes or no and move on. 3. Diversify your village. No village is one size fits all. Some people are errand runners. Some are listeners. Some are playdate magicians. Some are, here's wine and carbs, friends. Use the emotional division of labor approach. Not everyone's good at babies. Some people are good at you. That counts. 4. Reciprocate eventually. You don't have to trade babysitting for babysitting. Emotional support, listening, even a quick message like, thinking of you today, builds equity in the village. And remember, reciprocity isn't about keeping score. It's about staying connected. 5. Accept the awkward. Here's a spicy one. Your village will be imperfect. Someone will show up late. Someone will say something weird. Someone will offer the wrong advice. Let them. The village isn't a flawless system. It's a web of humans doing their best. So how do you be a good villager? This one's just as vital because we're not only building villages for ourselves, we're called to show up for others. Let's call this How to Not Be the Flaky Friend trademark. Here are 6 quick tips. Be enthusiastic. When you offer help, mean it. I'd love to hold the baby while you shower. Let me know if you need anything. Energy matters. Be reliable. Follow through. Nothing says, I'm not part of your village, like a no-show during a meltdown. Be honest. If you can't help, just say that. Don't ghost, don't sugarcoat. The truth builds trust. Excuses? Not so much. Be proactive within boundaries. See a friend drowning? Show up with coffee and hold the baby. Don't wait to be invited to help. But also, don't rearrange their furniture unless asked. Be gentle with advice. Unless it's the baby is actively eating sand, maybe wait to offer tips. Instead, what worked for me might not work for you, and that's okay. Be fun. Sometimes the best support is joy, laughter, a walk around the block with no baby talk. Be the person who reminds them who they are, not just who they're raising. Modern village building, digital edition. Listen, we live in a digital world. You might not have physical access to family, but your village might look like a WhatsApp group of fellow single moms in your city, a Discord server for neurodivergent parents, a long-distance sister who sends a funny voice note every Friday. That counts. In fact, according to a 2022 Pew Research study, digital social support networks were associated with a 28% reduction in perceived isolation among mothers with children under 5. That's not nothing. That's mental survival. You're not broken. The system is. If this all feels like a lot, it is. It shouldn't be this hard. But here's what's beautiful. Humans are resilient, creative, and deeply wired for community. You can build what's missing. Slowly, imperfectly, but faithfully. And when you do, you'll find that the village shows up in small ways. at school drop off, in a shared moment at the park, or through that one friend who says, "Bring the baby over. I've got snacks and a clean floor." Because guess what? You deserve support. Your kid deserves a web of love, and none of us were meant to do this alone. Let's begin by expanding our understanding of why a village matters, not just in early parenting, not just for toddlers and babies, but for long-term child development, family resilience, and society as a whole. The long-term benefits of growing up in a village. Research consistently shows that children raised with consistent access to multiple caring adults beyond their parents experience better outcomes in nearly every measurable category. These benefits persist well into adolescence and adulthood. According to a 20-year longitudinal study conducted by the Center for the Developing Child at Harvard University, children with at least two non-parental adult role models during early childhood are 43% more likely to finish higher education. They are 33% less likely to engage in high-risk behavior by age 16, and they report higher life satisfaction scores even decades later. Another major study by the National Scientific Council on the Developing Child found that buffering relationships, safe, stable, nurturing adults outside the nuclear family, help mitigate the impact of toxic stress in childhood. That means that for children growing up in households with instability, financial hardship, or emotional stress, just one consistent external adult can radically shift their developmental trajectory. This is the village in action, not as a nice idea, but as a protective factor in child development. The invisible stress of parenting without support. Let's flip the coin. Parenting in isolation, while increasingly normalized in industrialized societies, has been shown to have tangible negative effects, both on parents and children. According to a 2023 report from the World Health Organization, parents without consistent social support are 3 times more likely to report clinical levels of stress and anxiety. They're twice as likely to experience symptoms of depression during the first 5 years of a child's life. And critically, their children are over 40% more likely to develop stress-related behavioral issues before age 10. This is not a reflection of individual failure. This is a systemic issue. It reflects the dismantling of multi-generational households, the weakening of communal bonds, the erosion of public trust, and the increasing cultural pressure to do everything independently. In short, we are asking parents to do something evolution never intended them to do: raise children in emotional and logistical isolation, and then blaming them when it breaks them. The solution isn't to demand more superhuman efforts from already exhausted parents. The solution is to rebuild environments where asking for help is normalized, where offering help is habitual, and where community is the baseline, not the exception. What the global village still gets right. Across many non-Western cultures, the village has never left. In fact, some societies actively build their urban planning, social policies, and cultural norms around the expectation that families are supported collectively. Here are a few examples. In Kenya, particularly among the Kikuyu and Luo communities, child rearing is a multi-generational effort. Grandparents are not just involved, they are seen as primary transmitters of wisdom and discipline. A 2019 study from the University of Nairobi found that 80% of children in rural areas regularly spent time with extended family members at least 5 times a week. In Japan, there's a cultural concept called amai, which refers to the sense of dependence and trust built within social groups. Japanese preschools often encourage group responsibility, where older children help care for younger ones. This encourages empathy and community-mindedness from an early age. In Nordic countries like Sweden and Norway, Universal child care, generous parental leave, and subsidized home support programs create what researchers call an institutional village. Parents don't need to rely only on family because the state provides the scaffolding for collective care. According to the OECD, Swedish mothers report the highest levels of life satisfaction among working mothers in the developed world, a direct result of broad community support. These models remind us that the village is not just about people, it's also about systems, policy, and intention. When a society chooses to support parents, everyone wins. What communities gain when they invest in families? Let's zoom out even further. What happens when a society chooses to actively support families, when it invests in the well being of children and their caregivers? The return on investment is measurable. Economist James Heckman, a Nobel Prize laureate, has spent decades researching early childhood development. His findings are simple but profound. Every $1 invested in early childhood support systems, including parental leave, quality childcare, and community-based programs, returns up to $7 in economic benefits over time. Why? Because children raised in stable, supportive environments grow up to be healthier, more productive, and more engaged citizens. They require fewer public health interventions, are more likely to stay in school, and are less likely to enter the criminal justice system. This isn't charity, it's strategy. A functioning village doesn't just raise healthy kids, it produces better societies. The quiet power of small actions. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the big picture, but a village isn't always built through grand policy shifts or government programs. It's also built in micro moments, small, consistent, ordinary acts of showing up. Here are a few examples backed by behavioral science. I'll wait with your child while you run back for the diaper bag. A minor action, but it builds trust and signals that the parent is not alone. Let's swap school pickups once a week. Simple logistics, but it reduces cognitive and emotional load for both parties. I made extra dinner. Would your family like some? Nutrition, care, presence, a gesture that feeds more than just stomachs. Each of these acts is backed by a principle called social buffering, the idea that regular low-effort interactions build psychological safety. It doesn't take much, but it takes intentionality. Silver linings, parenting without a village. Now, let's acknowledge that not everyone has a village right now. Some people are estranged from family. Some live in new cities. Some are rebuilding from scratch. And for them, the idea of a village might feel like a cruel joke. But there are silver linings to this situation. Independence of thought. Without constant unsolicited input, parents often become more decisive and clear in their own values. Confidence in capability. Many parents who raise children without external help discover reservoirs of resilience and adaptability they never imagined. Selective connection. Without a default network, parents become intentional about who they allow in. They build tighter, higher quality bonds based on mutual respect and care, not obligation. These are not just coping mechanisms, they're strengths. And for those still building their villages, know that it's never too late. It doesn't have to be large, it just has to be authentic. Ending on a feel-good note. Here's the truth that every parent, caregiver, and community member deserves to hear. You are not meant to do this alone. Needing help is not a weakness. It's not a failing. It's human. It's how we survived. It's how we evolved. And it's how we will thrive again. Every time someone holds your baby so you can breathe, every time someone says, "I've got you, go rest," every time a stranger sees your struggle and doesn't look away, that is the village, and it is alive. Maybe it's bruised, maybe it's scattered, Maybe it's being rebuilt from ashes, but it's still here, in us, among us. And if we choose to participate, if we offer our hands, our time, our listening ears, we help build it back. One small act at a time, one family at a time, one child held by many hands at a time. Because no matter what the world tells you, no matter how alone it sometimes feels, it still takes a village, and the village is worth building.
We've talked about why the village is essential. We've covered what happens when it disappears, how to rebuild it, and how even a modern, digitized version of it can be powerful. But now, we go further. Let's explore the deep, layered benefits of village-based parenting, not just for children or parents, but for communities, institutions, and generations. The village mindset is a public health strategy. Let's begin here, viewing the village not as a feel-good metaphor, but as a public health intervention. According to the Lancet's 2022 Global Burden of Disease report, early childhood adversity is one of the strongest predictors of lifelong poor health outcomes, including chronic disease, addiction, and even reduced life expectancy. But here's the good news. That trajectory can be changed. Not with technology, not with wealth, but with stable, relational support. The American Public Health Association notes that social support is a stronger protective factor against postpartum depression than medication in mild to moderate cases. Not a supplement, not a nice bonus. The main factor. Words, connection saves lives. It prevents illness. It protects mental health across lifespans. So when we talk about building a village, what we're really talking about is a preventative health model. Emotional infrastructure, social immunity, systems that catch us before we fall. Communities with strong villages are more economically resilient. Let's talk economics, because social cohesion isn't just an emotional win, it's a financial one. In neighborhoods with high levels of social capital, meaning trust, shared norms, and mutual assistance, research shows a reduction in crime rates, improved school outcomes, and even higher home values. These are measurable, real-world results. For example, a 2021 Brookings Institute study showed that low-income neighborhoods with high social cohesion outperform wealthier neighborhoods with low cohesion in terms of child well-being. Why? Because economic capital alone doesn't raise kids well. It's relational capital that moves the needle. You don't need gated communities and elite schools. You need people who look out for each other's kids. Who notice when something's wrong. Who say, "I've got you." This isn't idealism, it's measurable social return. The village builds resilience, and resilience builds wealth, not just money, but intergenerational well-being. In other words, connection saves lives. It prevents illness. It protects. Let's turn to schools. We often place the burden of education entirely on teachers and expect them to produce well-rounded, emotionally intelligent, academically successful children, all within limited hours and resources. But when a school operates as an extension of the village, outcomes shift. According to the National Education Association, students whose families and communities are actively engaged in their education perform better academically, have lower dropout rates, and are more likely to pursue higher education. The village model here looks like mentorship programs linking students with elders in the community, after-school clubs supported by local businesses and volunteers, parents forming logistical and emotional support groups to reduce teacher burnout, teachers knowing not just the student, but the student's wider context. Schools are not factories, they are ecosystems, and when the ecosystem includes parents, neighbors, mentors, and local institutions, the system becomes regenerative, not extractive. The psychological safety of interdependence. Now let's get into the psychology. We live in an age that prizes independence. But what the research shows is that interdependence, not independence, is the key to emotional well-being. Dr. Julianne Holt-Lunstad, a professor of psychology and neuroscience, found in her extensive meta-analyses that loneliness is as harmful to physical health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The antidote? Meaningful, reciprocal connection. In other words, village living. We are not built to be lone operators. We are designed, neurologically, emotionally, and evolutionarily, for shared responsibility. For communal care, for mutual visibility. In an interdependent model, everyone's capacity grows. Because the burden is shared. The joy is multiplied. The weight is redistributed. Civic engagement grows in village cultures. A less obvious benefit of strong village systems is increased civic participation. Communities with deep relational ties see higher rates of voting, volunteering, Public health compliance, neighborhood safety initiatives. In fact, according to a 2020 Pew Research survey, people who frequently interacted with neighbors and community groups were over 40% more likely to participate in local governance, from school boards to city councils. Why? Because belonging breeds accountability. When you feel rooted, you show up. You contribute. You care. You don't see your neighbor's problem as separate from your own. A village isn't just good for raising children, it's good for democracy. Let's widen the lens. Raising children in villages is not just a moral or emotional imperative. It is a civic and generational responsibility. When we support parents, we build the next version of society. We shape the baseline emotional intelligence of future leaders, caregivers, educators, and innovators. If we don't invest in caregiving ecosystems, we are planting seeds of burnout, disconnection, and emotional fragility into the next generation. But if we build villages today, we equip the next generation with emotional regulation, community-mindedness, adaptability, empathy, a sense of shared stewardship. These are the qualities that outlast test scores, that define cultures, that decide whether we fragment or flourish. Rebuilding the village, a call to shared purpose. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a choice. We can accept the fragmented systems we've inherited. We can normalize burnout, isolation, and self-reliance at all costs. Or, we can rebuild. Not in giant leaps, but in consistent, daily acts. Invite a neighbor to sit and talk. Form small, supportive parenting circles. Say yes when someone asks for help, and ask when you need it. Vote for policies that support caregiving, not just commerce. Speak openly about the need for community, so no one feels like they're failing just because they're struggling. The village is not a nostalgia project. It is a blueprint for sustainability. A feel-good ending rooted in truth. Let's close with this. You are enough, but you were never meant to do it all. There is strength in asking, power in receiving, grace in building something together, even if it's slow, even if it's small. Every supportive act, every offer of a ride, every moment of shared care, every text that says, "You're not alone," is a vote for the future. And the future? It's made by the children we're raising now. So whether your village is sprawling or just beginning to take shape, know this. You matter. Your effort matters. Your care matters. And the village? It's not lost. It's waiting for each of us to remember that we belong to one another. Let's build it back, together.